Chick-fil-A worker was allegedly called the N-word and a monkey by a so-called fellow staff worker at Chick-fil-A. In a lawsuit, a black Chick-fil-A worker in Idaho accuses a staff member of racial harassment. Tyrone Bowman live. Well, let's get down to it and let's find out what's going on here. In the climate when individuals think that they can say and do any and everything that they want to do without repercussions, they're soon finding out that this is not the 1960s or 50s anymore. This video is courtesy of Indisputable with Dr. Richey. So let's get right down to it here. I'm not going to play with this.
A Chick-fil-A worker endured racist abuse at the Idaho location. This is like extreme racial abuse. Put up the picture for him, ass. According to Atlanta Black Star, Lauren Mosteller on the left, franchise operator of the Ammon, Idaho Chick-fil-A restaurant, is being sued by a former black employee who claims managers, including Jessica Lanehart on the right, failed to intervene when he reported racial harassment by coworkers. The federal employment discrimination lawsuit claimed his coworkers subjected him to relentless racial harassment, including calling him an ape, calling him the N-word, and also comparing him to a slave. According to his complaint obtained by Atlanta Black Star, shortly after Thomas Wade started working as a cook at the Chick-fil-A franchise in Ammon, this is a suburb of Idaho Falls, in December 2022, he applied for the company's leadership development program, but was passed over for a white male employee. Mr. Wade was assigned to the, quote, back of house crew at the restaurant where multiple members of the Ibarra family worked, including Eric Ibarra, his supervisor. In March 2023, Mr. Wade says he intervened when Isaiah Ibarra, Eric's son, and another employee were antagonizing a third coworker. Quote, "Shut up, ape, before I put you in a cage," end quote, Isaiah Ibarra allegedly said to Mr. Wade. When Mr. Wade said he would report the conduct to management, Isaiah allegedly called him a, quote, monkey-looking ass, end quote, and warned him.
Let me just stop right here and interject this real quick. And apparently it seems behind all the smiles and the politeness and the so-called courtesy that you receive when you go to Chick-fil-A, there's a lot of racism and bigotry that goes on behind the scenes. And I'm telling you straight up, it couldn't be me, because the situation would have turned out completely differently. And in this day and age when black people are called out of their names, especially in these white institutional workplaces, they very rarely are going to get the help that they need, especially with the current administration in power, because all these billionaire CEOs, they all work together, they all golf together, they all eat together, and they all feel the same exact way behind the scenes. If you think that systemic institutional racism is not real, you better talk to your sons and your daughters who are graduating from college, top-notch universities with powerful GPAs and powerful resumes. And every time they go on these interviews, they're told, you're not qualified, you're not qualified, you're not qualified. So let's get back to the story. Chick-fil-A is not going to be off the hook. And yes, they are with all this Sabbath keeping, and yes, they are MAGA Republican owned. So make no mistake about it.
That, quote, my parents own.
Now
quote,
listen.
Shut up, ape, before I put you in a cage, end quote, Isaiah Ibarra allegedly said to Mr. Wade. When Mr. Wade said he would report the conduct to management, Isaiah allegedly called him a, quote, monkey-looking ass, end quote, and warned him that, quote, my parents own this store, end quote. Mr. Wade complained about the racial slurs and intimidation to Eric Ibarra, who, quote, did nothing according to the lawsuit. Nor did back of house director Kayla Barnes or general manager Jessica Lanehart, who Mr. Wade says apologized but did not discipline either Isaiah Ibarra for his racist comments or his father for failing to discipline his son and failing to bring the matter to the attention of management. Mr. Wade took 2 days off to give himself some space, according to the suit. And when he returned to work, he claimed several members of the Ibarra family chimed in with more racist comments, which only worsened over the next several months, 7 months to be exact. Isaiah Ibarra, his brother Noel Ibarra, and other co-workers called Mr. Wade ape, monkey, N-word, and antique farming equipment in reference to slavery, the complaint says. They also told him they would put him in a cage. Quote, of course he works at Chick-Fil-A. Quote, of course he works at Chick-fil-A. He's black, so he loves chicken. End quote. That's what one Ibarra brother allegedly said to the other in Mr. Wade's presence. They're talking to each other, saying these comments. On another occasion, Mr. Wade says he walked in on Noah Ibarra whipping co-worker Lime Hardy with a towel when the latter said, quote, please, master, I'll work harder, and, quote, yes, master, end quote. Hardy then said Mr. Wade, quote, would know about getting whipped since he is black, end quote, the lawsuit states. Between the month of March and October 2023, Mr. Wade says he made between 25 and 30 reports to either Ms. Leinhart or Barnes about the racist comments co-workers made to him or made in his presence. Okay? Now, what do you have so far? You have a family affair. That's what you have. Okay? You got a family affair. Everybody is participating in this extreme behavior, and it seems as if those who are put in positions of supervision or management, they are either A, co-signing on it, or B, unwilling to do a damn thing about it. Now, they may feel as if they are powerless because the family is in charge of said restaurant, but you see, here's the thing. Regardless of what you may think inside of your head, you are working for a corporation that allows for the public to access it, which means you must abide by public accommodation rules. And if you do not abide by public accommodation rules, we're not even getting into the discrimination dynamic yet. If you don't abide by the simple public accommodation rules, which means fair treatment for everybody in said establishment, that includes workers and customers, you are in fact responsible. That included one day, June 2023, when Sativa Cortez, one of Eric Ibarra's daughters, taunted him by saying, quote, look like a monkey, act like a monkey, end quote. While he was waiting outside his supervisor's office for a meeting to discuss the ongoing harassment, Mr. Wade says he told Ms. Leinhart and Barnes about the racist slurs coming from the Ibarra siblings, including the latest from Cortez, and pointed out that, quote, management in action emboldened the entire Ibarra family to continue harassing him. Leinhart said she would speak with them, quote, but nothing changed, the lawsuit states. July 24th, 2023, Noah Ibarra and co-worker Joshua Ramirez called Mr. Wade over to see what they had written on the freezer, the complaint says. On it, Wade says he read Danny G. German. He didn't get it at the time, but later Ramirez explained that separating "da" and "man" from the middle letters reveals an obvious slur, which Mr. Wade reported to Barnes that same night. Barnes appeared annoyed and told Mr. Wade that if he wanted to be a shift leader, quote, he needed to get along with the Ibarra family, quote, because several of them were already in leadership positions and she shouldn't fire them, the complaint alleges. Now, Mr. Wade claims he also told Barnes that Noah Ibarra consistently called him Blackie, N-word, and monkey. But he never heard from her or Lanehart about any action taken about it. Other employee misconduct also went unpunished, Mr. Wade alleges. Late July 2023, Noah Ibarra was suspended for sexually harassing a coworker, and after returning, he, quote, continued to act out and was fired as a result. The lawsuit says a month later, he was rehired. That is called negligent retention.
Now, you have to really pay attention to the narrative of the story. You got to pay attention to what's really going on here. Let me break it down to you. This young man has been called every derogatory, rotten name under the sun in this particular Chick-Fil-A, and there's no alleged in it. He was called it. And as a result, when he strenuously objected to it, and then when he stood up for himself, now they accuse him of sexual misconduct. And this is the reason why, when you're working on jobs, black men, listen up and listen careful. Go to the job, do your job, and if there are any type of infractions and things that are occurring, you're being called out of your name, you don't have to argue with these people. You don't have to debate with them. Go and get yourself one of the most powerful lawyers on the planet that deals with and understands what discriminatory nature is, and you sue them. That's how you do it. Make sure you got your evidence. Make sure you record everything. Don't trust anyone, anything, or anybody. You don't give blind loyalty to a corporation. And especially if you're working down in Idaho, in Alabama, in Mississippi, and Georgia, and all these other places, and you know what goes on down there. It can be a subvert racism, overt racism, outright racism. Bottom line is, if you don't like the stories that I do, then go someplace else. I'm going to continue to talk about stuff like this as long as it continues to exist. We're not going to throw it under, we're not going to put it under the rug. We're not going to sweep it aside. We're not going to claim that white people are being discriminated against, as the current administration says, reverse racism and all that kind of stuff. No, it doesn't exist. What happened here really happened. It's not a joke. It's not a game. This is somebody's life. And they deliberately set him up so he could be fired. Why would you rehire him if you say he sexually assaulted somebody? That's stupidity.
Separating "da" and "man" from the middle letters reveals an obvious slur, which Mr. Wade reported to Barnes that same night. Barnes appeared annoyed.
You're right.
And told Mr. Wade that if he wanted to be a shift leader, quote,
still got to deal with it.
He needed to get along with the Ibarra family, quote, because several of them were already in leadership positions.
I'll deal with you in a minute, Retro.
The complaint alleges. Now, Mr. Wade claims he also told Barnes that Noah Ibarra consistently called him Blackie, N-word, and monkey. But he never heard from her or Lanehart about any action taken about it. Other employee misconduct also went unpunished, Mr. Wade alleges. Late July 2023, Noah Ibarra was suspended for sexually harassing a coworker, and after returning, he, quote, continued to act out and was fired as a result. The lawsuit says a month later, he was rehired. That is called negligent retention and then negligent rehire. In August of 2023, Mr. Wade reported to his shift leads, Eric Ibarra and his wife, Veronica Ibarra, that their daughter, Sativa, had just called him back of house monkey. They allegedly told Mr. Wade they could do nothing because Sativa was a supervisor. That same month, Lane Hart allegedly asked Mr. Wade, quote, why he would want to work in a place where he was being harassed all the time, end quote. On October 14th, 2023, Mr. Wade says he complained again to Barnes about the racist slurs and harassment and told her she needed to do something about it. Instead of addressing the misconduct, Barnes told Mr. Wade, quote, she wasn't scared of him, he claims. 2 days later, Barnes and Lionheart fired Mr. Wade. May 2024, Mr. Wade duly filed a charge of discrimination with the Idaho Human Rights Commission and the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, both of which found merit in his claims that illegal discrimination and retaliation had occurred, according to the lawsuit. Now, I'm going to explain why that part is important. Many times when you have discrimination claims from a corporation, you work at, say, a corporation, and you believe you've been discriminated against, typically an attorney will only take that case if you have been cleared to sue by that state or federal agency dealing with discrimination. And the reason is because they do somewhat of a vetting process to make sure that statutorily, based on state and federal law, you meet the prerequisite standards to file said lawsuit. So he meets the standards. Now, February 2025, the EEOC issued a notice of right to sue. And on March 13th, Mr. Wade filed his lawsuit in the United States District Court in Ohio against Lauren Mostella Incorporated, who is the Chick-Fil-A franchise operator. The franchisee, Lauren Mostella Inc., doing business as Chick-Fil-A. It is a Georgia-based company owned by Lauren Mostella, who is also the restaurant operator in Ammon. On Tuesday, a Chick-fil-A company spokesperson told The Independent, which first reported on the lawsuit, quote, this matter involves a franchisee, not Chick-fil-A Incorporated. I got something to say about that in just a moment. Franchisees are independent operators responsible for all employment decisions in their restaurants. Chick-fil-A Inc. is not involved or aware of their employment matters. Shame on you, Chick-fil-A. Damn shame on you. The reason why I'm calling you out is because that restaurant is a licensee, okay? That's a licensed restaurant. You give it the license to utilize your brand, your logo, your slogans, your meal prep, your vendors, etc. They had to apply for said license, and in order to get those license or that license, they had to agree to do certain things a certain way. As a matter of fact, if that restaurant was open on Sunday, you would snatch his damn license in a minute. Because that's one of the rules for using the Chick-fil-A brand.
And Dr. Rashad Richey is correct. How is Chick-fil-A Incorporated on a national level going to deny any culpability within this matter when simply saying, oh, the franchisee is independently owned? It can't be independently owned if you didn't approve the ownership. They couldn't be independently owned if they didn't comply with all your procedures, your standards, and the regulations. They couldn't be independently owned if they didn't agree not to open up on Sundays. So to deny a culpability in the matter is trying to disassociate yourself from what is going on with this particular restaurant. You all are to blame just as much as they are, because apparently it seems like systemic racism is running rampant throughout Chick-fil-A. And many of the black people who work there are afraid to speak up for being fired. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid to be outspoken, win, lose, or draw. Get in the fight, let your voices be heard, make it be known crystal clear that we are not going to tolerate this type of foolery anymore. Bottom line, the days of suffering for a paycheck are over. That's why a lot of people have ulcers, high blood pressure, strokes. That's why they're sick and they're lonely and by themselves because they put up with stuff like this. I know a lot of my friends personally who work in corporate America, and they are dealing with all types of heartache and pain.
You also have a morals clause. I know this because many years ago I looked into purchasing one of your damn restaurants before I understood what kind of entity you were running.
Come on now.
Your morals clause. That's enough right there. If an owner is accused and convicted of theft, if an owner is accused and convicted of any kind of crime, you all have the right to snatch away that license immediately. You utilize it as leverage in order to make sure that these franchisees are in fact compliant with the standard of Chick-fil-A. This response is ridiculous.
McDonald's does it all
As
the
if
time.
somebody can boldly proclaim the brand of Chick-fil-A, but there is absolutely nothing you can do to enforce the standard of Chick-fil-A. That's what you would like people to believe. In their answer, the complaint filed May 7th, Mostella Inc. denied all of Wade's claims of discrimination
Of course they would.
and misconduct by its employees, calling them, quote, frivolous, unreasonable, or groundless.
That's the attorney
The company
speaking
asserted
for
that
them.
any injury or damage suffered by Mr. Wade was, quote, caused and contributed to by the negligence and fault of plaintiff or a third party, and that his allegations of isolated, sporadic conduct are insufficient to establish a hostile work environment.
First of all, the owners of this particular franchisee are too dumb to speak on this level. I'll tell you now. These are attorneys speaking on their behalf. I'm a criminal justice major. I know what I'm talking about. I know legalese when I hear it. Insufficiency of the evidence and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. In street language. These are their attorneys speaking for them. Because they know when they open up their mouths, what's really on the inside of them will come to the forefront. So they hide behind the cloak and collar of the law and pay the attorneys an enormous amount of money to make sure that they're not called out on the carpet and they don't pay for the insultation of this young man. It goes on every single day. You got caught. That's what happened here. And in you getting caught, you want to hide behind a battery of attorneys. Y'all gonna find out real quick. You can call it a new America. Let me look at Retro for a minute, talk to Retro. I love this new world. Now, yeah, of course you love it because they're dealing with bigotry, segregation, or racism. And you think that it's going to go unwarranted and that people aren't going to stand up for themselves. Well, somebody done told you and the rest of y'all wrong. It may be a new day, but it's not a new way. Racism is not new. Bigotry is not new. Segregation is not new. Ronald Reagan was a vitriolic racist when he was president of the United States. Woodrow Wilson was a vitriolic racist when he was president. Andrew Jackson was a vitriolic racist when he was president. Abraham Lincoln, who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, was assassinated because he dared cross the Republicans within his own party who wanted the institutionalization of slavery to remain because it was the economic backbone and hub of this nation. So racism is nothing new. There are always going to be activists who stand up and fight for what is right and what is just and what is decent, whether you all think that Hitler didn't win during his time and racism is not going to win now.
That is an interesting way to put it. That's actually not true based on the law. It is the inaction of management. You all have basically admitted that at least sporadic incidents happened.
Mm-hmm.
By you saying this, you also admit, at least in a roundabout way, that you were aware of sporadic incidents, but you said this attributed to either his actions or the actions of a third party. Your lawyer is dumb as hell
I told you.
if they help you craft this.
Yeah, right. It's the
Because
lawyer
it's not
talking.
about the actions that have happened to him.
Right.
It is about the inaction of management to do something about it. Oh, they got you. They got you. You all were aware and did nothing. Well, that's the part that matters in court, not these other parts that you're proclaiming. Mr. Wade was terminated, not in retaliation, according to them, for reporting racial harassment. Mostella argued, but due to his, quote, failure to satisfactorily perform his job responsibility and otherwise conduct himself in accordance with company policies and standards, quote, the franchisee of the Chick-fil-A at issue is confident that the allegations in this lawsuit are entirely unfounded. Kelly Rooksby, an attorney representing Mostella, said in an email statement to Atlanta Black Star, quote, the case remains pending and we are fully prepared to demonstrate that there was no unlawful conduct. We trust that a jury will reach the same conclusion. This is going to be interesting.
It is.
They're talking big and bad now. We shall see how it pans out in the very near future. Sherry, this is an interesting story. And I will tell you this, typically from the EEOC perspective, it's not easy to get these kinds of approvals or right to sue letters. And that's why attorneys, they jump on them right away because they know the vetting process has already been done. The young man obviously has more than just some he said, or he said, she said. He has some actual documentation and proof to back up his claims. What say you?
Well, I think you're so smart and appropriate to jump on Chick-fil-A corporate instead of the Dippy family franchisees and their, I don't know what's going on with the lawyer there. Perhaps they used chat and didn't double check it like you're supposed to. Listen, the Chick-fil-A normally has a duty that they can pull the franchise agreement, as you alluded to, Doc, and they usually have a duty to give the franchisee some time to correct the behavior, but not always if the conduct is most egregious, like in this case. They can do it immediately. They can get change here. I just think it's ridiculous. This is the time of year where I am usually overcome by my addiction to a temporary menu item, the peach milkshake. It would be my pleasure to boycott it this year. I don't need it anyway.
That's
I think
right.
Chick-fil-A can do better, and they better do better.
That's right. You know, I think some of these corporations are overestimating the Trump effect.
What a dumb letter. What a dumb response.
To judicial review. So we shall see.
Doc.
All right.
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the court of law. Because first of all, the lawyer does represent this family. He's just plain stupid. He is, seriously. All this legalese, this legal jargon and dancing around stuff. First of all, you're in some trouble, serious trouble. And they're going to have to settle out of court. You have to make up Blue Hornet, I agree. It'll be interesting to see about, quote, the composition of that jury should be interesting, end quote. It should be. Because we already know what type of jury they're going to have. And it's not going to be a jury of his peers. It's going to be a so-called jury of his peers, as is always the case. I'll keep you updated and I'll keep you abreast. We're going to stay on the job. We're not giving up. We're not backing down. Never surrender. Never quit.